Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is Fahmid Islam with you. Before moving on, let's look at today's top stories. Laquan McDonald case, Obama disturbed by dashcam video. Paris Climate Summit will show world not afraid of extremists, says Obama. New York Thanksgiving Day parade sees tightened security. Turkish plane diverted to Canada over bomb threat. Cameron to set out Syria strategy to MPs within days. Bangladesh Shia mosque attacked by gunmen. Well, those were the headlines, now the details. Officer Jason Van Dyke is charged with the first-degree murder of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald, who was stopped by police after slashing car tires. In a Thanksgiving message on Facebook, the president paid tribute to Chicago protesters for keeping the peace. 4 people were arrested overnight as demonstrators marched through the city. The protests were not as widespread or as tense as Tuesday night, which began moments after police released a dashcam video showing the incident. Mr. Obama said on Facebook, "Like many Americans, I was deeply disturbed by the footage of the fatal shooting of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald. This Thanksgiving, I ask everybody to keep those who have suffered tragic loss in our thoughts and prayers and to be thankful for the overwhelming majority of men and women in uniform who protect our communities with honor." McDonald was stopped by police in October 2014 after reports that he had been walking in the road and slashing car tires. The video shows him holding a knife when the police cars arrive and Mr. Van Dyke emerges from his car. Within seconds, he shoots the teenager. U.S. President Barack Obama insisted Sunday he would go ahead with a visit to Paris for world climate talks despite the deadly attacks there, urging other leaders to attend and show we are not afraid of extremists. "I think it's absolutely vital for every country, every leader, to send a signal that the viciousness of a handful of killers does not stop the world from doing vital business," he said following an Asia-Pacific summit in Malaysia. In addition to hunting down terrorist missile strikes, curbing jihadist financing and other steps, the most powerful tool we have to fight ISIL is to say that we're not afraid, he said using one of the acronyms for the Islamic State group. Over the past week, Obama and other Asia-Pacific leaders have held successive summits in Turkey, the Philippines and Malaysia that have been overshadowed by the recent string of deadly extremist attacks. The carnage in Paris, Lebanon and Mali has sparked calls by assembled leaders for a concerted international effort to stamp out Islamic State and other jihad groups. Obama is among world leaders due in Paris for talks beginning November 30 and intended to reach a global climate change accord. The Turkey-bound flight with 256 people on board landed safely at Halifax International Airport in eastern Canada. Canadian police said they were investigating but would not comment on the details of the threat. The incident comes amid heightened tensions a week after attacks in Paris that killed 130 people. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police Force for Nova Scotia said on its Twitter feed that the bomb threat was received at 22:50 local time, by which time the flight had already taken off from John F. Kennedy Airport, according to flight tracking sites. It landed in Halifax at 12:53 local last Tuesday. 2 Air France flights from the U.S. to Paris were diverted because of bomb threats. Mr. Cameron has promised a full-spectrum approach including military, counter-terrorism and humanitarian actions. It will be followed by a push to convince MPs to allow military actions in Syria, the BBC understands. MPs voted against UK military action against the Syrian government in 2013 but later approved British participation in airstrikes against IS extremists in Iraq. A new push for common support for action in Syria will be aimed at MPs across the political spectrum. The Foreign Affairs Committee report said there should be no extension of British military action into Syria unless there is a coherent international strategy that has a realistic chance of defeating ISIL. The city's signature parade was held under tight security following the attacks in Paris on 13 November. The officials urged residents and tourists to attend, saying there are no credible threats. The parade in its 89th year included marching bands, floats and giant balloons drawing huge crowds. The New York Police Department ramped up security, adding around 200 officers from a new counter-terrorism unit. Police Commissioner William Bratton said the parade was a way to push back on events around the world that are meant to intimidate. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio said police had been fine-tuning its response to a possible terrorist attack in advance of the parade but told people not to give in to psychological warfare. In Washington, a man was arrested after climbing over a fence into the grounds of the White House while President Barack Obama celebrated Thanksgiving with his family. The man was reported to have been carrying an envelope but was not armed. Mr. Corbyn has written to his MPs saying he cannot support David Cameron's call to extend bombing operations against so-called Islamic State to Syria. One unnamed senior front bencher has warned people could quit if Mr. Corbyn orders the shadow cabinet to back him. Mr. Corbyn has pulled out of a campaign visit to Oldham West amid the row. He had been due to campaign in the constituency later ahead of next week's by-election. A spokeswoman for him said, regrettably, Jeremy Corbyn is not now visiting Oldham because matters to do with Syria mean he must return to London. Soldiers patrolled the streets as a manhunt continued for the fugitive Salah Abdeslam, who was wanted in connection with last week's attacks. Friends said he was in the Brussels area and trying to get to Syria. The city was a base for the attackers' Islamic State militants, who killed 130 people in Paris. The Belgian authorities placed Brussels on its highest level of alert late on Friday. Prime Minister Charles Michel said later there had been quite precise information that several individuals with arms and explosives could launch an attack, perhaps even in several places. One of the men who drove Salah Abdeslam to Belgium told his lawyer that he was dressed in a big jacket and may have had a suicide belt. The lawyer, Karin Conquillet, told Belgian TV this raised questions, including the possibility that Salah Abdeslam may have been supposed to blow himself up in Paris, but had second thoughts. Friends of Abdeslam told ABC News they had spoken to him on Skype and said he was hiding in Brussels and desperately trying to get to Syria. They said he was caught between European authorities hunting him and so-called Islamic State members who were watching him and were unhappy that he had not detonated his suicide belt. Daniel Scioli, the governor of Buenos Aires province, is up against Mauricio Macri, the city's mayor. On the eve of the vote, center-left candidate Mr. Scioli lagged behind his center-right rival in the polls. Mr. Scioli was marginally ahead in the first round with 36.7% to 34.5%. But under Argentinian law, a presidential candidate needs 45% of the vote or a minimum of 40%, with a 10-point lead over the nearest rival to win outright. Both candidates have been back on the campaign trail in a month since the first round. Sunday's vote marks the first time a presidential election in Argentina has gone to a second round. Mr. Scioli, a close ally of current President Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, had been expected to win by a greater margin in October. The waste has traveled more than 500 kilometers, 310 miles since the dam at an iron mine collapsed 2 weeks ago. Samarco, the mine owner, has tried to protect plants and animals by building barriers along the banks of the river. Workers have dredged the river mouth to help the mud flow out to sea fast. The contaminated mud tested by the water management authorities was found to contain toxic substances like mercury, arsenic, chromium, and manganese at levels exceeding human consumption levels. Samarco has insisted the sludge is harmless. In an interview with the BBC, Andres Rucci, director of the Marine Biology School in Santa Cruz in Espirito Santo State, said that mud could have a devastating impact on marine life when it reaches the sea. Interior Minister Jan Jambon said the current threat was greater than that posted by Salah Abdeslam wanted for the Paris attacks. Brussels is on its highest level of alert amid fears on attack. The city was a base for the Paris attackers, Islamic State militants, who killed 130 people. The Belgian government will review the security situation in Brussels later on Sunday. Metro services remain suspended until Monday morning, and residents have been told to avoid crowds. Soldiers are patrolling the streets as a manhunt continued for Salah Abdeslam, 26, a French national who lived in Brussels. Police described him as armed and dangerous. Friends said he was in the Brussels area and trying to get to Syria. Interior Minister Jambon said the terror threat in Belgium would not be over once Salah Abdeslam is out of harm's way. We are back in a moment with the headlines here. Former South Korean President Kim Jong-sam dies. China coal mine fire kills 21, state media says. Myanmar landslide, 90 dead at Kachin jade mine. PM pins on more robust Indo-Bangla relation for mutual benefit. And Bangladesh hangs Chaudhry and Mujahid over 1971 war crimes. Welcome back to Millennium TV News. Mr. Kim was taken to hospital with a fever and died of a blood infection and heart failure on Sunday morning. For decades, Mr. Kim fought against military rulers and pushed for democratic reform. For his part in the pro-democracy movement, he was placed under house arrest twice in the 1980s. He then served as president from 1993 to 1998, during which 2 generals turned presidents were indicated on mutiny and treason charges stemming from a coup. Kim pardoned the 2 convicted military strongmen, Chun Do-hwan and Roh Tae-woo. At the end of his term during Mr. Kim's presidency, military tensions created a cloud over the Korean peninsula. The fire began on Friday at the coal mine run by a state-owned company in Jixi City, Heilongjiang Province, Xinhua news agency says. It earlier reported that 22 people were trapped underground. The cause of the blaze was not immediately known. China has the world's deadliest mines, with hundreds of mine workers killed in accidents every year. But the country's safety record has shown signs of improvements in recent years as the authorities enforce a strict compliance with safety laws and procedures. A total of 38 miners were underground when the blaze started, but 16 of them managed to escape. Xinhua says the authorities say the fire is now under control. Last year, 24 people were killed and 54 injured in an underground fire at a mine in China's northeastern Liaoning province. Without naming Khan, Rajnath Singh told the parliament that despite insults, iconic Dalit leader B.R. Ambedkar never said he would leave India. On Wednesday, the actor clarified that he had no intention of leaving India, but several leaders of Mr. Singh's BJP party have criticized him. On the opening day of the winter session of the parliament, MPs began by paying tribute to Ambedkar, the independence hero who wrote India's constitution. Ambedkar was a Dalit, formerly untouchables who were socially discriminated against by India's higher castes. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had to put up with insults and derision, yet he controlled his emotion and put forward an objective point of view for India. He never said how he was being ignored and insulted in India. Mr. Singh said in his remarks in the Lok Sabha, the lower house of the parliament. He said, "I'll stay in India and keeping the Indian values and cultures in mind. I'll strengthen the country," Mr. Singh added. A landslide at a jade mine has killed at least 90 people in northern Myanmar, witnesses say. The victims were buried when a vast heap of waste material discarded by the mining companies collapsed in Kachin state, Burmese media reported. Many of the dead were scavengers living on or near the waste dumps who searched through the debris in the hope of finding fragments of jade to sell. The state of Kachin produces some of the best jade in the world. The landslide in Pakant happened in the early hours of Sunday morning, and there were reports of dozens more missing. A huge rescue operation is underway with the Myanmar Red Cross, the army, police, and local community groups all at the scene trying to dig people out of the earth. The attackers shot at worshippers in the mosque in the Bogra district during evening prayers, police said. The incident comes a month after a grenade attack on a Shia shrine in the capital Dhaka killed 1 and hurt 80. Bangladesh has seen several violent incidents in recent months, including attacks on foreigners and secular bloggers. Thursday's gunfire came a day after police said they killed a militant leader named Albani, who was the key suspect in the 24th October grenade attack. Police said that Albani headed the military wing of Jamaatul Mujahideen and that he died in an exchange of fire as they tried to arrest him. The so-called Islamic State group had claimed it carried out the October attack, but the government says IS is not active in Bangladesh and blamed local militant groups including the JMB. Bangladesh is predominantly a Sunni Muslim nation, but attacks on Shia Muslims are extremely rare. The country has seen a rise in Islamist attacks on foreigners and bloggers. An Italian aid worker was killed in September and a Japanese citizen in October. Both attacks were claimed by IS, but the government blamed the killings on local militants. Last week, gunmen wounded an Italian priest in northwest Dinajpur district. No group said it carried out the attack. Extremists have carried out a series of high-profile attacks on secular writers, hacking to death 4 bloggers, 1 a U.S. citizen so far this year. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina today pinned on robust Indo-Bangla relation in all socio-economic areas, saying the two countries need to come forward with liberal mentality and sink narrowness to boost up ties. Bangladesh and India should strengthen cooperation in all areas of economy and social development for a brighter future of their people, as a large segment of population of the two countries still live in under poverty. Everybody should work together for economic prosperity of the people of the two countries and for mutual development of our people. Everybody should come forward with liberal mentality, sinking all narrowness, she said. This while addressing a function on the occasion of signing a memorandum of understanding between BSEC and Security and Exchange Board of India (ACBI) at her Tejgaon office today. Salahuddin Qadir Chaudhry and Ali Hassan Muhammad Mujahid were hanged in Dhaka's central jail. They were convicted of genocide and rape charges they denied. Chaudhry has been an influential politician. He was elected MP 6 times. Mujahid was the top leader of Bangladesh's largest Islamist party. Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan said they were hanged after President Abdul Hamid rejected appeals for clemency by the two men. However, family members have dismissed reports that the men had made any such appeals, which would have also required admissions of guilt. My father said he did not seek any mercy, Chaudhry's son, Humam Qadir Chaudhry, told AFP news agency. After meeting his father for the last time hours before his execution, he has always said he's innocent. Now the businesses news. Kaiser told the Financial Times investment is about believing about the future, and events like that happen. People will wait. Siemens is Europe's biggest industrial conglomerate with 350,000 employees. Mr. Kaiser's comments were echoed by Italy's finance minister Pier Carlo Padoan said the 13 November attacks, in which 130 people were killed, threatened the Eurozone's fragile economic recovery. The biggest economic damage from these attacks is on confidence, and confidence is a crucial element in this phase. Mr. Padoan told the newspaper it is indispensable to help countries exit the crisis. Any elements that undermine confidence are very dangerous. Although Eurozone economic sentiment rose slightly to 105.9 in October compared with the previous month, the impact of the terrorist attacks in Paris and the heightened security in Brussels this weekend could cut the November figure when it is released by the European Commission next week. Now the sports news. The world number one from Serbia broke serve 3 times to win 6-3, 6-4 in 80 minutes at London's O2 Arena. Djokovic also made amends for defeat by 6-time champion Federer in the group stage on Tuesday. "I'm enjoying every moment on the court. I cherish every moment after dreaming of it as a kid," he said. He ends the year with 11 titles, including 3 Grand Slams, taking his total to 10 majors. The 28 years old has now won the season finale 5 times and surpasses Ivan Lendl's 1987 achievement when he won his hand third straight to finals title in New York. Fast bowler Amir, 23, was jailed for his part in a spot-fixing scam during the 2010 Test series in England and banned from cricket for 5 years. He returned in September and is playing for Chittagong Vikings in Bangladesh. Hafiz refused to play with Amir in the T20 competition, saying, "I can't share the dressing room with someone who hurt my country's integrity." The all-rounder, 35, said he had no personal issues with the bowler, who would be eligible for selection for Pakistan's squad to tour England next summer. He added, "If any other team makes me an offer, then I will play the league, and I have no problems facing Amir, as I have played against him in the domestic matches, but I can't be in the same team." Asked what his stance would be if Amir was recalled by Pakistan, Hafiz said, "We will look at it when it happens. It's premature to say anything right now." Amir, then 18, pleaded guilty to bowling no balls at pre-arranged times during Pakistan's 4th Test against England at Lord's in 2010. Let's have a look at Millennium TV News Recap. Laquan McDonald case, Obama disturbed by dashcam video. Paris Climate Summit will show world not afraid of extremists, says Obama. New York Thanksgiving Day parade sees tightened security. Turkish plane diverted to Canada over bomb threat. Cameron to set out serious strategy to MPs within days. Bangladesh Shia mosque attacked by gunmen. You are up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log into www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you for staying with us. Allah Hafiz.